Okay, writers, welcome to part two, where you actually are going to start writing. So I just want to go over real quickly what you've already learned. You have already learned so many things. Number one, you've learned that you must tell the truth. You can't make things up that didn't happen, and you can't have characters in there who weren't really there. You have to tell why your story matters. In other words, how you grew or changed as a result of what happened to you. And number three, you learned that you need a great hook or opening for your story. Some way to open your story that makes people absolutely feel compelled to read on until your last word. All right, so here is where we are going to start writing. So if you don't have pen and paper, you really need it now. So grab that pen and paper, and I'm going to give you a few ideas for what you might want to write about. I'm actually going to give you 4 different scenarios, and you can pick one of these 4. Whichever one, just sparks your interest the most, or whichever one you hear and you go, oh, yeah, I know exactly what I want to write about. Okay, so here they are. And I just want you to jot down which one you want to write about to begin with. Don't start writing your story yet, okay? Number 1, something huge happened. Was there a time or an experience that changed your life? Number 2, weird family tradition. Is there something that your family does that you think is particularly weird or strange or funny? You could write about that. Number 3, my worst day ever. Write about the worst thing that's ever happened to you. Number 4, my best day ever. Write about the best thing that ever happened to you. All right, so like I said, I don't want you to start writing the actual story yet. I just want you to write down whichever of these things most stands out for you, and maybe jot down what that thing was. So for example, if it was something huge happened, just, jot down on your paper, something huge happened. I'm going to write about the day my father bought me a horse, or whatever it is. Okay, so I'm gonna send you on to the next panel, and you will be able to look at each of these 4 prompts and make your decision about what you want to write about. And like I said, just jot down which of these stories you think you want to pursue, and then we will get started with how you want to start your story. Okay, so you have figured out what you want to write about, and you have jotted that down on your paper. And now we're going to talk about 3 ways to start your story. So there are a lot of ways to start a story, but I'm going to give you 3 ways for you to choose from, just to simplify things. And I want you to pick one of these 3 ways to start the story that you decided you want to tell, okay? So the first would be to drop readers right into the middle of the action. So an example of this would be if you're writing about having seen a car accident, and maybe this was the worst day of your life. You could open by saying something like, the car spun around and around in the middle of the highway, and I could see the people inside screaming from where we stood. So you see how you're opening right into the action. You're not opening by saying something like, it was a sunny day and we were on our way to wherever. No, you're opening right with the car spun around and around in the middle of the highway. So you see how you are opening right into the action. That's a great way to start a story. The second way to start one of your stories would be to open with someone talking. So an example of this from Charlotte's Web is, where's Papa going with the axe? Said Fern to her mother as they were setting the table for breakfast. So this drops the reader right into a conversation that is already happening. That's a great way to also start a story. And number 3, open with a question. For example, why had my mother cooked an entire turkey only to feed it to the dog piece by piece? So that way you're setting the reader up with an expectation that you are going to be answering this question at some point in your story. So again, 3 ways to start your story. Number 1, drop your readers right into the middle of the action. Number 2, open your story with somebody talking. Or number 3, open with a question. One more thing I want to remind you guys about is that you can completely change or revise your opening at any point while you're writing your story. Nothing is ever set in stone until it's been printed, basically. And in fact, all writers rework and revise their writing many, many times before putting it out in public. So, so never feel like something you've written has to stay exactly as is. It probably shouldn't. And you may think about a better way to open your story or a more effective or more powerful hook when you get to the end of your story. And if that's the case, then you can go back and you can revise your beginning at that time. So just remember, there's a lot of freedom in writing in that way, and to use it. So I want you to remember to always write in your own voice, okay? Don't try to imitate a story voice maybe that you've heard. You don't need to try to sound witty or cool or anything like that. There are going to be a lot of other ways to express yourself in your story and to let your personality shine through, and we're going to talk about that in the next section. For now, I just want you to focus on coming up with a great hook for your story to get your readers foaming at the mouth to hear more, okay? I'm going to read you a couple of lines from books. These are first lines from books that are considered kind of the best of all time. You can kind of see how other writers have handled this question of how to write a good hook to snag the reader right up front. So let's see here. From Gravity's Rainbow. I have not read that book. I have not read all of these books, but from Gravity's Rainbow, a screaming comes across the sky. That's a pretty good first line, is it not? How about this one from a book called 1984? You may have heard of that book. It was a bright, cold day in April, and the clocks were striking 13. You got to read on, don't you? How does a clock strike 13? From a book called called Invisible Man, The first line, I am an invisible man. How about this one from the Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, which you guys might have read. You don't know about me without you've read a book by the name of The Adventures of Tom Sawyer, but that ain't no matter. That book was made by Mr. Mark Twain, and he told the truth, mainly. There is a book called The Metamorphosis that starts like this. One morning, as Gregor Samsa awoke from anxious dreams, he discovered that during the night he had been transformed into a monstrous bug. So as I'm reading these, think about whether or not they make you want to read on. My feeling about almost all of these so far is that they do. How about this one? This is from a book called The Good Soldier. This is the saddest story I have ever heard. From a book called Gone with the Wind. Scarlett O'Hara was not beautiful, but men seldom realized it when caught by her charm, as the Tarleton twins were. How about The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy? Far out in the uncharted backwaters of the unfashionable end of the western spiral arm of the galaxy lies a small, unregarded yellow sun. From a book called Fahrenheit 451, It Was a Pleasure to Burn. So you can see how these not only snag you in and make you want to read more, but they give you a little taste maybe of what the story is that they're going to be telling. Whether it's going to be a mystery, whether it's going to be a tale about a journey, or something science fiction-y. So think about that, and now I want you to spend a little bit of time crafting your hook. So I'm going to send you off to do a little bit of writing, but I want to just do a quick review of everything we've learned in part 1 and part 2. So to begin with, as you recall, you've learned that you must tell the truth. You can't make up things that didn't happen. You have to tell why your story matters, how you grew or changed as a result of what happened, and you know that you need a great hook to open your story with, and you understand why. It's to make readers foam at the mouth and want to read on, basically. We talked about 4 different ways to enter your story or to think about what you want to write about. So the first would be that something huge happened, writing about a time or an experience that changed your life. The second one would be a weird family tradition, something your family does that you think is particularly strange or unusual or funny that you want to write about. You could write about your worst day ever, the worst thing that ever happened to you. You could write about your best day ever, the best thing that ever happened to you. These are just suggestions, and if there's something else that you want to tell, something else you want to write about, you are certainly welcome to do that. We talked about 3 different ways to start your story, and those are to drop the reader right into the middle of the action. So for example, I gave you the example of, the car spun around and around in the middle of the highway, and I could see the people inside from where we stood. That's an example of dropping your readers into the middle of the action, as opposed to starting with something like, we were walking down the street in the town of Belfast when we heard a loud noise, So that would be sort of working your way up to the action instead of starting in the middle of the action. And starting in the middle of the action is always a great way to start a story. You could also start your story with someone talking. I gave you the example from Charlotte's Web of Fern saying, "Where's Papa going with that axe?" And then there is the opening with a question like, "Why had my mother cooked an entire turkey only to feed it to the dog piece by piece?" So there's 3 ways for you to start your story. Of course, there are any number of ways to start our story. I'm just giving you some ideas and some examples. To review about your hook. Does your hook make the reader foam at the mouth for what comes next? Does your hook hint at your story's main conflict or theme? And does it sound like you and your voice? Remember, I said you don't want to try to sound witty or cool or smart or whatever. You want to just sound like you, and you're going to have plenty of opportunity to for your personality to come through in your story by the way you write and the things you write about and what you bring to the story about what you learned. So that's where we are so far. And I will see you in part 3.